I'm Mel,
And I'm Andrea.
and we've been asking ourselves, WTF? Where's the fun?
So, welcome to our podcast for heart-led business leaders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs ready for more. More impact, more wealth, more joy, and more magic, all while having even more fun than ever before.
As co-founders of FunX, we believe that life and business is way more fulfilling when you're following the fun.
So, we're flipping the script on success, giving you permission to create from a whole new paradigm where you can have a lasting impact while nurturing your well-being and having a freaking blast along the way.
So join us each week for engaging solo episodes
and real conversations with experts who are embodying this new paradigm of leadership, spiritual wealth, business growth, and of course, fun.
If you're ready to reignite your spark, make bold moves, and lead from a whole new energy,
Let's jump in and have some fun.
welcome to WTF. Where's the fun? I'm Mel,
And I'm Andrea.
and today is a special solo episode because yesterday, I really want to talk about what happened yesterday to us on our hike. And I feel like there's so much value that happened yesterday on our hike that we need to share it. So we were talking about our big 2025 vision, our goals, and then what happened?
Well, I think for us and how this came about was we were actually walking ourselves through the mini experience that we're creating for December 12th. So anything that we create, whether it's a workshop, any type of experience, we personally guide ourselves through it
Yeah.
to make sure that the energy's right, the impact's right, like it flows. So first I walked you through it and you had like the clarity, you have the focus for 2025.
Yeah.
And then you walked me through it and I felt like really connected to it.
But then,
And simultaneously in the same moment, I think what you were doing is you were guiding me through the exercising of like feeling it, embodying it, like actually feeling how it feels to be really living and achieving that goal, almost as if I'm celebrating it a year from now.
yeah,
And when I was doing that, it was like I could feel that there was a disconnect between me saying what I wanted and then me actually believing that it could happen.
yeah, you kind of like, you were super into what you were saying about your Audacious 2025. And then it was kind of like, and you were like, but do I believe I can actually have that?
And it's funny because I had like an actual visceral reaction. I felt
Yeah.
like I was in my heart. I felt connected to it. It felt almost like this expansive, peace, calm, excited energy. And then I felt almost like this sensation. It was like in the side of my face. It was my ear. And typically when I have a sensation there, I know it's connected to usually a block around
Yeah.
being unworthy.
Yeah.
So you were like, let's work on it, but let's go on a hike. And I think we've done this enough to know, and we know this, like this is what we teach people. Like you won't create what you want, you create what you believe.
Yeah.
And that's something that's been so vital to our journey. And I knew that I wanted it, but I didn't necessarily believe it.
Totally believe.
Fully believe it. It almost felt like it was too good to be true.
Yes.
Or there was some disconnect.
So do you want to start by saying what your goal was?
Yeah. Okay. So my intention for 2025, and this is something that's been on my heart and I can really feel it coming through, is speaking more. Like we're calling it a North American speaking tour. And really it's about sharing this message all around embodiment, fun, that your life and your business can actually be fun.
Yeah.
So here I am, I have this goal that I want. And then at the same time, I'm like, oh, but actually I don't know if I could do that. And and then I kind of went into the non-fun train or the non-fun lane, which I think is important because it's like you can be in fear or you can be in fun. And the fun is more like that heart connection piece. So that's the goal. That's the intention. It even kind of scares me a bit sharing this on here because usually
You play it close to the chest.
I definitely do. But that is something that is absolutely on my heart. And really, I was like, I know I need help with this. I know I have a block. So we went on a walk. You helped me guide through it. And it was as if I was in high school. And when I was in high school,
It was a Pavlov coming up is really what it was. You reverted back to a time in your life when the same thing had occurred. So you're just repeating patterns is what it was, and we became aware of it, and
Yes.
it was when you're back in high school going into university, and you're the first person in your family to go to university. So it's super scary, it's almost a sense of unworthiness in that,
It
being
was
the first person.
even, like, before it was, like, almost, like, before I decided that I was going to university because I wasn't
Yeah,
it's like I knew I wanted that. Same with this goal, like, I knew I wanted it, and at the same time, I wasn't really all in on doing it.
yeah, you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you have to be 2 feet in.
So part of it was I didn't feel worthy. I felt like, who am I to go to university? I felt like honestly, I felt like I was judging myself because I feel like I came from I had a single mom. I felt like I didn't really even have the resources to go to university.
Yeah,
And then what I unpacked even more is that I actually wasn't it's almost like I was playing it safe, or I
yep,
was like you were even saying, like, I was trying to fit in. So I was hanging out with people who also weren't aligned with the values that I want. I didn't have the discipline, I didn't put the effort in. If I had put the effort in, for sure I would have felt worthy, but I wasn't putting the effort in because I didn't feel like I could then have it.
yeah,
Does
mhm,
that make sense?
yeah.
Today's episode of WTF Where's the Fun is sponsored by The Fun Experience, a curated mastermind for established business owners, entrepreneurs, and CEOs ready for more. More magic, more joy, more wealth, and more fun than ever before. So if you're ready for a peer-to-peer mastermind that's helping you to embody more leadership, more impact, and make bold moves, The Fun Experience is where it's at.
Okay, so what that why we're sharing all this is because we wanna really paint the scene of how we got to our 2025 vision, and for me, and I think for both of us, it sparked something because
Yeah,
it was like, I hadn't put the energy, the effort, and I hadn't yet took the action steps or even evolved or changed into the person who was then gonna go to university.
exactly.
So then I was like, "Okay, if I just knew that back then, if I had that believer or that person who believed in me," which I could be that for myself now.
Mm.
It's like, I gotta be that for myself in this situation too. So, what are the things that I need to do to go all in with my whole heart to allow myself to believe that I can actually go and have the impact and the message and do this North American tour?
So then I said, has this shown up in another time in our lives? And it had. And it was when we were moving to the lake.
Yeah.
We were 35 and owning a lakefront property in Muskoka at 35 is usually very unheard of. And we had a lot of people actually say, maybe you should just buy somewhere else. Basically, they were, like, kinda shutting our dreams down, but this has been our dream forever since we've been together, and we said, "Fuck you. We're not doing that. That's your dream for us, not our dream for us." And
Yeah.
we were like, "Okay, well, what do we need to do in order to get there?" And was our house even on the market yet? I don't think it was. No, it wasn't
No, it
because it was
wasn't.
in summer, and we said, "Okay, well, what would it be like to live the Muskoka Lake life even if we're not in Muskoka on the lake yet?" And what we did was, and it sounds hilarious, but we bought flannel shirts,
Yeah. We called them
PDJ,
our, like, Muskoka.
Muskoka wear.
Yeah.
We bought kayaks and started kayaking. We would have bonfires on the regular and talk about our dream. And we even we had a deck and it looked out onto a farmer's field. And we would, that sounds so funny when I think about it. And I have a picture of it, but we would sit in our kiddie pool that was for our dogs, but we decided to sit in it, and we would have a drink, and we would look out on the cornfield, and we'd envision it being the lake, and that we were on our dock on the lake, and that we didn't realize it at the time, but that was us embodying what we wanted before we had it.
It almost helped me bridge the gap
Yeah.
because vibrationally speaking, energetically speaking, even like subconsciously, there's a huge disconnect from the life we were living, the way we were living, the thoughts we were thinking, the actions we were taking, to how we would show up on the lake.
Because you can get so stuck in the, well, if we're here, how are we going to get there? And you get so stuck in the how, the how. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me how we're going to do that.
I remember we had done a lot of work on like personally, professionally, but really it was a lot of inner work, a lot of personal development stuff. And every weekend, for the most part, we were doing things to get ahead.
That's right.
And I was like, if we lived on the lake, we wouldn't be spending our weekends trying to get ahead. We would be spending our weekends enjoying. I would be reading a book, or we would be sitting on our dock,
Or kayaking.
or we'd go kayaking or go for a hike. Really, we would go slower.
Yes.
So we stopped trying to figure out how we were going to move up north. We were okay with it taking longer than we wanted it to.
Yeah.
We were patient. But then we started to actually have fun. And I remember like one of my favorite memories is we were sitting around the fire in our Muskoka jackets, pretending as if we're having this like outdoor
Muskoka fire.
Exactly. And it was at the point where it's like I felt like I was truly enjoying.
Yeah.
I no longer felt like I was trying to get there. I was just okay being where I was.
Yeah.
And then it accelerated our goal, I would say
Tenfold.
yeah, because like 2 months later, we ended up listing our house. And here's the next part of the story on the hike. Beginning part of the hike, it was all around, okay, identifying that was just an old Pavlov that I was having.
Yeah.
Then we were getting into, well, where's this shown up before? But then it switched to, okay, how did we play the move then masterfully? Because that for us was a really big, I think it was a big lesson. I think it was big, big transition for us.
Yeah.
And it felt very, very similar to this goal that is on our hearts now, because it requires almost a shift in identity, a shift in how we're living,
Yeah.
and all those things. So we ended up, for those of you who don't, if you don't know the story about how we got our house, so it was in the middle of COVID. We had been looking for probably
2 years.
like actively looking. This has been on our heart for 15 years, but we'd been actively looking for 2 years. We'd been coming up north. We would like put offers in houses. We kept losing out because it was like insane.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't make sense that we were going to find the house that we wanted within the budget that we had with all of our non-negotiables.
Yeah.
But we're like, you know what? If we put it out into the universe, if we truly like not settle, we were refusing to settle.
Yes, that was part of it.
We had our non-negotiables, and one of the things that our heart said was, and it didn't make sense, but it was like, sell your house first.
Yeah, which is scary. But worst case, you sit there and you say, well, okay, well, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is that we would have rented for a year.
Yeah. And you were in love with our other
I
house.
was rooted in that.
You were in love. So I was fine with that. I think for you, it was a little bit harder for you to be like, okay. But then once you got on board, you're fully on board.
Yes.
And then, okay, so we're like, let's do it. Worst case scenario, could we live with worst case scenario that we rented? And I think we were like, just had enough faith and confidence in ourselves that at some point we would find the right house.
We went all in with 2 feet at that point.
So we made this decision, I think it was this time, like around late November, early December. And then within a month, we had our house ready to go.
Oh, yeah, ready to go.
Ready to go. We listed it. We basically packed up. We went up north for a week, and we let the house come through. We had a lot of showings. We really were lucky with the time-wise.
But right before we had left to spend the week up north, I had put an email out to our network, which is difficult because it's like, this is what we're doing. This is our vision. I'm sharing it with tons of people on my email list. And I'm asking, does anyone have a lead? And sometimes asking for that help is the biggest hurdle to do. But I did it anyways. And because we were in COVID and I wasn't playing hockey, I usually would see the girls every Sunday and we'd all catch up, but we hadn't been. So I get an email back from one of my teammates being like, where the F have you been? And I'm like, what? And she's like, we're getting divorced and the cottage is the last thing tying us to each other. And I was like, shut up. I was like, oh my God, we're going up north in like 2 days. Can we go look at it? And she's like, yep, keys are there. Walk in. She goes, it's in middle of construction. They were doing a big reno. And so Annie and I, like, we didn't put any pressure on it. We just kind of enjoyed the drive here, and we walked in, and we had seen enough places that we knew when we walked in here, this was it. And
Yeah.
so we called her. We said, let's get you and your ex on a four-way call and let's hash out a deal. Like, stop your reno. We want to buy this place. And so we came up with an offer. They accepted. We got lawyers involved. And
Well,
so,
technically, we sold our house, and then 12 hours later,
Yeah.
we made the deal for this house. So,
Yeah.
so technically, we did sell our house before we purchased.
yeah.
And it was probably one of the most like stressful yet exciting, yet kind of the same feeling like we're in right now. And why this story I think connects so well with where we're at is it kind of feels like we're almost in that limbo land now,
Yes.
where it's we have something coming through
Yes.
for this goal that we have, and it's pretty much
Right there.
there. It's like 90% there, and yet it's not fully it's not
The deal isn't fully sealed.
exactly. And that's what it was like with this house.
Yes.
So when we walked in this house, I remember thinking, like, please God, let this house be mine, because it did feel like all the things that we had this non-negotiable list. It was absolutely everything, or at
Yeah.
least 99% of the things that was on our list. And with that comes fear.
Yeah.
A shit ton of fear.
Yes.
Not to mention, we kind of so we had to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. So this wasn't a typical
So,
sell. So we sold our house. That was easy. This was a little bit more of we really had to play the game of focused, heart-centered intention, focusing on what we want and not let the fear kind of drag us down.
really keeping your vibration high through the entire process.
Yes. And the reason for that is so when we purchased this, they had done a major renovation. So they had lifted the house, they had done pretty much all the exterior, but the inside was a shell. So picture this house, it has absolutely nothing on the inside. It doesn't have stairs even going to the house. Like, it has absolutely nothing. We purchased it in January. Let's say, yeah, let's say end of January. And
Dead of winter.
in order to get a mortgage on a house, it needs to be 98% complete. So basically everything in the house needs to be done. Our house, if we were to look at it, it was maybe like 10%, maybe high end 20%. So we had a month and a half to renovate a house that we didn't own. So the other people still owned it. Well, they were going through a volatile divorce where they were up and down, highs and lows, and we didn't even know what was going to happen. And we're putting our time and attention, a shit ton of money in getting this where it needs to go, but also it's during lockdown.
Yeah.
So usually a kitchen like that takes like 6 weeks. Well, we had like 5 weeks, and now it's in COVID. So it's like even harder to get all these materials. We live 3 hours away. Simultaneously, Mel is closing her painting business. I'm moving my clients mostly virtual. So we're having a major transition
In business.
and we were like, what do we need to do? Luckily, we had the best mentors who were like, focus on
The bigger picture.
that, but also, like, how do you stay grounded? We did meditations together every single day because we know if we didn't, it was almost like if you picture yourself climbing up a cliff. This is how it felt for me anyways. You're climbing up a cliff, and if you look down, you're fucked. And I was like, if we focus on all the things that can possibly go wrong, my emotions are gonna take me out.
Now, don't get us wrong. There was a lot of tears through this process because it was emotional. Like, there were certain, you locked us out of our CRA account that we needed. And they were like, we'll mail it in 10 days. Well, we needed it in 2 days and to get the mortgage. And so there were a lot of highs, a lot of like,
Well, on my birthday too.
oh yes, on your birthday was a whole nother story. But there was a lot of things that happened that could have taken us out of the game. But we were committed to doing the things that kept us level and kept us moving one step closer each day. Because it was a whole lot of fucking work to do.
And this is what I think part of the manifestation journey is sometimes, where
Yeah.
it's like, first you have to get clear on what is it? What is it that you actually want? Then there's that embodiment piece.
Yeah.
You're feeling it, you're embodying it. But then there's actually that point where it's like, now I just need to almost take that. It's almost like you're bridging that gap until there's a big enough space where you could take that leap.
Yeah.
And you're hoping, and this was our leap. And based on our comfort level, our leap was maybe bigger than some. Maybe some people have more of a
Yeah.
risk tolerance for even a bigger leap.
Yeah.
But we knew what our worst case scenario was. And it was all about mitigating the fear.
Yeah.
So how did we soothe ourselves? Basically, we know worst case scenario. If the house wasn't done and we couldn't get our mortgage traditionally, we knew that we could get a private mortgage.
Yeah. Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. Did we want to do that? No. It didn't make sense with interest rates and all that, but we knew at least worst case scenario, we could do that. We also knew worst case scenario with you coming up here and joining my business, if it didn't grow because we were working on renovating the house too during that short period of time, that worst case scenario, you could go get a paint job.
Yes.
Like you had a painting business, you could have done that. So that
Mhm.
made us feel safe enough.
So
That
takes a leap.
that was one. And then I think when we were actually in the process itself, we did focus on, and we were talking about this on the hike, and I can't remember what the actual word for word was, but this was the essence of it. We knew that if we truly gave it our all, like we showed up
Yeah.
every single day and put the best that we could, and we did things that felt uncomfortable, like we
Yes.
had finance conversations. We would drive flooring 3 hours and drop it off. Like,
Drop it off, do a dump run, drive back 3 hours.
we were willing to do whatever it took, but we also were willing to take care of ourselves in the
Yeah.
process. We knew that that was important, so we scheduled hikes, we would go skating, we would
We
take
made
the
sure we
dogs.
didn't stay at the house renovating till 10 or 11 at night because we needed to manage our rest.
Yes, and we wanted to make sure that, yeah, we were taking care of our energy,
Yeah.
is what we wanted to do.
Yes.
So we did that. We gave ourselves permission to not focus so much in other areas. Like we were allowing ourselves to go all in here. But what that I think allowed us to do is we were okay knowing that if we did all of that,
Yeah.
that we would be supported by the universe. And the universe was smarter than us, no matter the outcome, whether it was one way or the other.
Yeah.
We were, I think, like we had to remind ourselves some nights, like we're just going to do our best. And because we're doing our best, we're going to be supported.
Yeah.
But also, like at that point, you've literally done your best. There's nothing else we could have done. And then it would have guided us to something even better.
I know.
So we really held that vision. And I think that's what we're bringing into this. Like it does a little bit feel like we're in limbo. Um
For our 2025 vision.
for the vision, but this opportunity coming through, it does feel like it's like we have the house, but we're not fully closed. We're
Yeah.
not in it yet. Is this even possible?
So then yesterday on the hike, the other part of it is that we were talking about, okay, like if this is this close, like it's almost like, what are we willing to do to get us there?
And one of the top things that came up in my head is that how we're running our schedule
Yeah.
is not an embodiment of where we're going.
Yeah.
And this is something that's been coming through for me for a couple weeks. It's like, and I think there's times and there's seasons, but it's like I'd get up, and there's nothing wrong with what we were doing. We'd get up, we'd have an intentional slow morning, and then by 9 o'clock, I would do the same things, and it wasn't working for my energy, and it wasn't working for where I wanted to go. And I think that's where the disconnect was. So we're like, how can we align our schedule with this as if it's already happening? So let's just hypothetically, we're traveling and we're doing a speaking. It's like, well, what would we be doing? Well, I would be working out in the morning. So we figured out, like, tangibly, what time would we work out?
Yeah.
Well, we'd probably work out when we wake up. And then what would we do? Well, we'd have a coffee together. We'd have breakfast. So then we're like, okay, so we'll start our days doing that.
Yeah.
And then we're like, what else would we need in order to, like, if we were showing up in that way, what would we be thinking? What would we be doing?
For me, I said, well, I would need to know that our dogs are well taken care of at home. And so currently I'm looking into having 2 or 3 dog sitters that I can rotate in for when we're traveling so much next year.
And then we're like, well, we don't really have any outfits for working out in a gym outside of our house. We're like, let's get a couple outfits for that. Let's get a travel outfit.
Yeah.
Let's do the things as if we're expecting it to happen, opposed to sitting there waiting, hoping, oh, I hope this happens.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
then I'll do the other things.
exactly.
Like, let's go out and get a travel outfit, a new travel outfit. Let's get the dog sitters put in place now. Let's embody the thing we want before we get it.
And then to take it a step further. So this is our whole thought process. The next step was, what were we willing to do, or in I guess, if we're going to receive this thing that we actually want, what are we willing to do in order to make that happen? Or
Oh, I know what you're doing.
do you know what I'm trying to say?
Like, what are almost like the things that, like, with the house, we were so focused and everybody knew what our focus was during that time. It's like, so now going into 2025, we're super focused on our intention and what are things that almost like we have to say no to sometimes.
Kinda, but it was like, how this came up actually Lee. So Lee Jacobs, who was on the podcast before, she always shares, like, when she creates beautiful money, she's like, what am I going to give, or
Yeah.
what am I going to do in order to receive this beautiful money? And she picks things that are aligned with her. So we were like, what is our version of this? And some of yours were different than mine. So what were some of the things that you were willing to do for this beautiful opportunity or this beautiful money?
Well, I think to pay someone to come and stay at our house with our dogs was one of them. Another one was I love my time on the lake and I love my lake people. But I said, what I'm willing to do is to have to miss some events on the lake in order to get the things I want.
Yeah. And then another thing we were saying is we were willing to also prioritize more of the things that bring us joy,
Yeah.
like hiking more, like putting that ahead of some of the tasks that we've been doing.
Yeah.
For me, it was working out. Like when I'm speaking, when I'm traveling, I want to have a good schedule where I'm doing things for myself, but I'm moving my body. It makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But at home, I've been putting that at
In the background.
at the back burner. So I'm like, I'm willing to actually work out and get out of my comfort zone there. I'm willing to, I think I'm willing to become the person that I need to become in order to have and receive and do what I truly want.
Yeah.
And to have a couple anchor points in there, I think is helpful. So by the end of the hike, not only were we so clear about
Yeah.
the types of clothes we wanted to wear, the types of food we were going to have packed for this,
Our schedule.
our schedule, how we're going to show up now, even before. And I think the centered feeling around it, like it didn't feel like it wasn't this unattainable
Yeah.
disbelief anymore, because we had bridged the gap from this bigger version to how do we now become it, embody it, infuse it in our day without anything else changing. And also holding that vision of being okay with maybe it taking a little bit longer, or us having to be a little bit more patient.
Or us being a little bit more tired.
Yes,
That was part of it too.
that was it too.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds very simple,
Yeah.
and it kind of is. And it works. But there's things that I think if you have a big vision on your heart and you're like, I feel like I'm close, or sometimes maybe I feel like I go into a little bit of fear or the doubts or
the
the
how.
what if or the how, or even the like, I don't see how I'm gonna be from here to where I actually want to go, especially this time of year going into 2025. Start anchoring in, and how can you start bridging that gap? Focusing highly on even more of the things that you want, and surrounding yourself with the people, the environment, the actions, the habits, the thoughts that invoke that feeling
Yeah.
of whatever it is that you want.
Yeah. So by this time next year, you are that person that you're talking about right now. You are that person, or you have gotten that goal. Like, but you got to embody it now
Yeah.
in order to get it.
So what is that thing on your heart, that dream, that goal that you want to play in the energy of? And what is one thing that you can do to start embodying it now while prioritizing your joy, nurturing your well-being, having so much fun along the way, and just start with one baby step.
And if you need help with this, we actually have a 1-day mastermind event coming up December 12th in Muskoka. And it is going to help you embody the goal, the vision, the dream in tangible ways before you get it. It's almost like, who do you need to become?
It's actually just the journey we just brought you through is the journey we're bringing you through in this 1 day. We have 4 facilitators to help you create intention. What's the clarity of that vision, the embodiment of it? What are the blocks? How can you step more into your future self? And then how can you be seen in that? And then we step into the tangible action steps. We have a mastermind component where you actually then get to create and speak this out loud. You get real-time feedback, support. Like this is basically the journey. This is what I wish we had this time last year.
Oh, yeah.
So if you are interested in that, it's early bird pricing right now. So we'll attach the link to the show notes and let us know. Let us know what is the thing that's on your heart that you're embodying, and we can start manifesting and playing that energy together.
Thanks for listening to WTF. Where's the fun?
We're Andrea and Mel, and we're so excited to be on this journey with you to see how fun it can get.
If today's episode brought a little bit more fun into your world, be sure to subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review.
And remember, life and business is so much better when you're following the fun. So let's have some fun.